Wait a minute, not yet. And we are live. Welcome. You know, I am old enough to remember when promises made, promises kept, political slogan actually meant something. We have President Trump, the peace president, the man who, for all intents and purposes, lobbied and just really went hard to get the Nobel Peace Prize. And today, the United States military, in partnership with Trump's good buddy, Bibi Netanyahu, attacked Iran. And we are here to talk about that. And joining me this evening are two of my esteemed colleagues and personal friends of mine. And let me bring them on here. Bear with me. We're trying to figure this out as we go. We have Jozef Schutzman, my co-host, co-founder at Russia Up Close, live from Moscow, and Constantin Von Hoffmeister, an author and geopolitical analyst, live from Germany. And I am your host, Eddie Gonzales, also live from Moscow, Russia. Gentlemen, welcome. What a day. What a day.
Yeah, totally crazy. I actually woke up at 7 o'clock today, quite early, like 7 in the morning, because I'm an early riser. And I was too lazy to get out of bed. So I just lounged around for 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Then I grabbed my phone from the chair next to the bed and I just switched it on. I was like, wait, Israel just attacked like a minute ago, like a minute before Israel had attacked Tehran. I was like, wow, okay, is it true? So I posted it in one of the discussion groups on Telegram, and immediately somebody responded and said, no, it's not true, it's fake news, could just be something else. Like the mainstream media always wants to make it look like there's an attack, wants to sensationalize, could be anything, it's just a bit of smoke. But then, of course, every 5 minutes, more and more posts appeared all over Telegram, and then it just exploded like half an hour later. So I actually experienced it escalate, digitally experienced it escalate in real time from I said, 7:35 in the morning to 2 p.m. basically. Yeah, and a lot happened, as you well know.
Yeah, it was incredible. Absolutely. And I didn't expect it. Joe, what do you think about it?
Well, to be fair, I think we were all thinking that this, if it was going to happen, it sounded like they were blowing the horn, saying that this was going to happen on Monday or Tuesday. And then, of course, in true form, we just like surprise attacks for some reason. I just woke up this morning, much like Constantine, and I just rolled over and I literally just picked up my phone to see what time it was. And then I just refreshed the page and I was like, whoa, this just happened. I was probably 9 minutes later than Constantine, but still, I was just like, wow, all right, here we go. Again, and it seemed like just incredible what had happened even earlier. They had the actual attacks, but then I was digging into it a little bit further and to say, wow, it seemed like there was a lot of activity even throughout the night leading up to the actual bombing, was just absolutely insane. And again, I actually messaged one of my Iranian friends who's living here in Russia. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm just really sorry to hear this. Have you heard from your friends, your family? And he's just like, no, we're completely cut off. Can't get a hold of anybody. Absolutely horrific. This is what peace looks like, I guess.
I heard that they knocked out a lot of the communications capabilities within Iran. So communications in and out of the country, very, very problematic.
Yeah, it's quite crazy that it was a daylight attack even, because usually they attack at night. So it's a very brazen attack. I mean, in the middle of the day. And there's no outrage in the West about it at all, like here in Germany, for example. The mainstream media just reported it matter of factly. The politicians are mostly on the American side, like the mainstream parties, like the Christian Democratic Union, the Friedrich Merz, the German chancellor. said, yeah, the Iranian people have the right to choose their own government, like we are with our American and Israeli friends, and so on. And I mean, even after the massacre of the school children, well, like, I know over 50 girls were brutally murdered in a school, basically. There was nothing. I mean, it was reported, but again, just like matter of factly, like I didn't hear any like outrage comments, calling it a war crime, because that's what it is, obviously. And well, the European Union is always very vocal about the so-called international law. Yes, like Russia violated international law by invading Ukraine. It's a war crime by itself, and then Russia is committing genocide, etc. I mean, that's what they keep claiming. But what is happening now, like with the United States and Israel attacking Iran completely unprovoked, there's nothing, right? Absolutely nothing. It's just a glaring double standard. And I think more and more people in the world, especially the global south, or what I would call the global majority, they can see this double standard, the hypocrisy. It's just, I mean, it was already glaring during the massacre of Gaza, when they indiscriminately killed women and children by the thousands. And I suppose they're doing similar things in Iran right now. And again, there's nothing, right? So, I mean, the West was always practicing this double standard, but it's becoming more and more obvious to the world, because the West is losing its prestige at the same time that it is losing geopolitical clout, at least Western Europe, because the United States, I think, still wants to desperately hang on to the unipolar moment, so to speak, through naked aggression and imperialist means. Yes.
I think a lot of the credibility just went out the window at the at the hands of why did I forget his name, Joseph? The ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to Israel.
Huckabee.
Mike Huckabee. Yes, when he just with that interview with Tucker Carlson, and he says, sounds like you're okay with them, with Israel just taking the entire Middle East, and he said, yeah, I'd be okay with that, and I think that was a huge wake up moment for a lot of the Arab nations who still had maybe hung on to some hope that maybe things would be different under President Trump, especially 47. And now it's like it's meaningless. I would just, there's no credibility.
Well, it's a Christian Zionism that is basically won over Trump. The Zionists and the Christian Zionists, like the Gentile Zionists, like Mike Huckabee, who believe like this conflict is necessary because it is biblical prophecy, and therefore they unequivocally support the Zionist state. I think that's the main issue here. I'm not even sure that Trump himself really wanted this war. He was probably pressured into it. I think it's quite obvious, because I mean he ran on a peace platform, and you had like Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, people are reposting all these memes from like 2020, like Tulsi Gabbard, no war in Iran, and JD Vance, like 2 years ago, saying that, yeah, it was a big mistake, like invading Iraq, it was terrible loss of lives, lots of civilians died, lots of soldiers died, we should definitely learn our lesson. And Trump himself saying, like in several years ago, that Obama like probably wants to attack Iran because he's too stupid to negotiate, right? I mean, It's quite amazing that, and I actually watched Trump's speech this morning, when he said that probably American servicemen will die, but it will be for a good cause because we're defending freedom and the liberty of the American nation. I mean, it's totally grotesque. Like what kind of moron actually still believes this? I would really like to meet this person. I mean, I cannot imagine that a single person actually believes is utter nonsense.
To me, it sounded that just briefly that President Trump in his speech was setting up the narrative for a larger ground war. That's what it kind of sounded like, and I'm like, what is going on? Joe.
Yeah, I don't think I'm not sure they even have the soldiers for a ground war though, like the numbers.
Yeah, no, I think that Douglas McGregor has spoken quite at length about this, even with regards to Ukraine, right? And this continual, I guess you would say, thinning of the line, so to speak, of what's actually available to actually send over there. Look, this is a little bit different than the first time, right? The Chinese are on the ground in Iran. The Russians are on the ground in Iran. And who's supposed to actually show up for ground troops from the United States side? Exactly. I mean, obviously the IDF is there. Obviously we're just shooting billions of dollars off by the minute. But what's the end game here? Is it just to show Iran what America is made out of, and we're just doing this show of force, peace through strength type of thing? Or is it the next level?
I think it's the next level. I mean, Trump even said it in his speech, didn't he? He actually said that he literally said that he wants the Iranian people to rise up against the regime because no such chance will come in generations. They should do it right now, seize the moment. So he's obviously calling for regime change. I think that's the plan.
Yeah.
But I don't know how that's possible without ground troops, though.
No, that is very, very true.
I mean, unless the Iranians themselves do it, which I doubt.
I'm reading right now, Israeli media and Reuters, citing sources, are announcing that Iran's supreme leader, Khomeini, is dead. His body has been found. So, regime change, if that was the goal, they seem to have succeeded.
Yeah, but not really though, right? Because the regime will stay in place. I'm pretty sure they have a succession. So somebody will take his place. Somebody who's already been determined, obviously, a successor, and he will just continue on the same path. The question is, who will it be, and will the person be harder or softer, right? Because the West never really thinks about this, it seems to me. It's the same with like Putin, for example, when they keep saying, well, Putin has to go, Putin is a problem. But then does the West ever think about that Putin is actually really, really moderate and, very civilized and not extreme at all, and that his successor possibly might be actually not as moderate and more extreme, because the possibility is definitely there. So, I mean, they should consider themselves happy to have a person like Putin in power in Russia who can be reasoned with completely normally. And yeah, I guess we'll see what's going to happen in Iran now with the government.
Well, you also have already the various different congressmen were already really foaming at the mouth already. I don't know where Lindsey Graham is, but I'm sure he's just licking his chops somewhere.
Oh,
as
he's
people
lit up.
like
He's lit up.
Ted Cruz and all these idiots. And then, of course, you have this Randy Fine guy. I saw this post that he made on Facebook, which you and I talked about this a little bit, Eddie, right before the show. I don't know how to put this up on here on the screen. Do I just need to click the present button? Is that it?
Yes. Present and load it.
Yeah, it's loaded. And
then
I guess I need
here it is.
permission. Yep, there you go. Yeah, so the Muslim terrorists that run Iran have indiscriminately fired rockets. Okay, so it wasn't bad enough that we attacked them. We broke the international law that everybody holds so very, very sacred, except when it is not convenient for the West. And then also talking about the 700,000 Americans who live there, almost like this was some attack that was made by Iran. No, like, what do you think? No, Iran is just supposed to take it. They're just supposed to sit there. They're supposed to do absolutely nothing. They're not supposed to defend their sovereignty. Nothing. And to your point, Eddie, they're not just 700,000 Americans, but over 200 2 million, Russians that are living there. I mean, And we don't care about those people. Those aren't people. But we're going to worry about the 700 Americans who live there. Like this was some sort of horrific thing that Iran did. No, this is a completely understood response that was going to happen here. But again, we completely continue to get gaslighted about this stuff to just make Iran look like a bad guy, just for even responding. How dare they respond after being attacked?
Yeah, it's totally crazy. It's the same here. Like the European Union today, they said that they condemned Iran's attack on the other Arab nations, but there was zero condemnation of the American-Israeli attack on Iran, which triggered Iran's response in the first place. And I would also like to add that all of these Arab nations are basically legitimate targets, even according to international law, because the United States used them as basis to launch their attacks. So hitting or targeting these bases from a military and legal point of view is completely legitimate. I mean, this is not just an opinion, I would say. Or
and they're not just indiscriminately bombing downtown Dubai either. I mean, they're hitting the bases, right?
Well, yeah. Well, it's all military targets. I mean, and they are at war because they were attacked. You know, I mean, for some reason, nobody wants to talk about this in the West, because in the West it is very important, especially in Germany, to always support Israel and, our quote-unquote American friend. And I heard this today from a leading politician of the Christian Democratic Union. He said he can completely understand the American attack because Iran was constantly lying about its intentions with the nuclear program, and it is really becoming a threat to the Zionist state, to Israel, and therefore we should stand behind Israel and the United States in their resolve to finally get rid of this evil mullah regime, as they call it here, basically.
Wow. That's amazing. No, okay, so one other piece of news that I did see was that Saudi, or that at least they're claiming, I mean, obviously they're claiming that Khamenei is dead, but I'm seeing that the original sources are like Israeli media. We have our own journalists there, so apparently nobody's reported that directly besides the Israelis. But the Saudis, they've also reporting now that the Saudis are going to get involved in all of this against Iran. Is that realistic?
I think it's possible, right? Because Iran already attacked Saudi Arabia because the Americans had their jets stationed in Riyadh. So again, legitimate target. And I guess all these Arab states, a lot of them are sort of stooges of the American empire who benefit from the American empire economically, and therefore do not feel that they're somehow connected to their own civilization, which is the Islamic civilization, because to be honest, I don't really see any kind of Islamic unity here against the West, because obviously the West, meaning Israel and the United States, is only able to do what it does with the aid of these sort of American satrap states, these satrapies. Otherwise, they wouldn't even be able to do it. And yeah, so I think it's definitely possible, in my opinion, because the United States is really trying to keep the unipolar moment going, because it is really, really, really uncomfortable with playing second fiddle in a multipolar world, I suppose. And, I'm not so sure we're actually already in the multipolar world with what's been going on the last couple of months, because America is acting, brazenly, but without any real resistance from the other great powers. I mean, they kidnapped a president, quote, illegally, quote unquote, Venezuela. Trump just threatened to basically take over Cuba. He wanted to take over Greenland, which would have been great, but unfortunately he didn't. Now he attacked Iran, and for some reason, he's not really being challenged by the big actors, by the actors that some call Poles, like the Russian Federation or India or China. Yes. So the argument could be made that we're not really in a multipolar world, especially if this attack now continues and if they succeed with a regime change, which I doubt they will, but I guess it is a distinct possibility.
So the argument's being made right now, though, that in fact, okay, yes, whenever you're getting into any of these sticky situations with these wars, there are multiple different entities with multiple different agendas. But supposedly the claim is that this has much to do with China and trying to put them in a very bad situation economically, or either become either economically or make them make them aggressors, I guess you would say, in a war, trying to protect their interests in Iran. Do you have a feeling of how significant that is, I guess you would say? Like, how much do you think that might be a part of this? Or is it really just about getting this foothold inside of Iran and helping Israel achieve its goals?
Yeah, I think it's really only about Israel, or mostly about Israel, because I don't think the United States benefits from this in any shape or form, and definitely not the Trump administration, because I think if Trump doesn't pull off some sort of victory, even if it's a fake victory to save face, he's definitely going to get crushed in the midterms. So, and yeah, he must have known about this. And I guess the certain lobby groups in the United States are very, very powerful. And Israel, as we all know, is also a very powerful entity when it comes to influencing US politics. And Israel really wants to be the dominant player in the Middle East. It wants to be the ruler of the Middle East. It wants to enlarge its territory, and it also wants to fulfill prophecy. And they're also openly talking about it, together with the Christian Zionists, who are also very influential in the Trump administration or the US government in general. So I think China, of course, is very much interested in defending its interests in Iran, but I don't think that China would actually somehow get involved directly in the conflict. Maybe indirectly with with support for Iran, maybe with weapons, logistics, or other material, like the Soviet Union did in the Vietnam War, when the Soviet Union obviously didn't actively participate in the fighting, but they were definitely supporting the Viet Cong side, North Vietnam, or the Americans supporting the Mujahideen against the Soviet Union, because it's basically be just a proxy war. If this war drags on, which is possible, of course. I mean, this war could go on for weeks, months, or possibly even years, I suppose. Because Iran has a population of 92 or 93 million people, like almost 100 million people. I mean, there's more people in Iran than in Germany, and it's like 5 or 6 times the size of Iraq. I mean, Iraq is nothing compared to Iran. They have like 1 million soldiers in Iran and tens of thousands of missiles. So, I mean, and they even said this today, that they could go on for years, like they could fight this war for years. Not like they're going to be weakened in a matter of weeks. It's not going to happen, I think. And like we said earlier, like regime change is very unlikely without ground troops, and I don't think there will be any ground troops. Yeah. So I don't really see where this will lead and how the Trump administration can get out of it. So I don't know. It'll be definitely interesting to watch how things will unfold.
Yeah, no, that's a great point about the. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to leave with that one point that you said, like they have a 1 million-man Persian army, and supposedly the people are in revolt, against 1 million soldiers. Unless the army switches sides, which I'm not saying that can't happen, but if the military doesn't switch sides against the leadership, nothing's going to happen. So now what?
Yeah, I'm not even convinced that the majority of Iranians is against their own government. I think this is Western propaganda. It's probably a minority of Iranians, probably the westernized elite, who are opposed to the government. I'm not convinced that the majority of Iranians even want regime change. I think most of Iranians, from what I hear, speaking to Iranians, are actually quite loyal to the government, the Iranian government.
Absolutely, but we should also point out, right, that there are a significant portion of Americans which we're a little bit more fat and lazy, and we don't have as much difficult situations as people in other countries, let's say. But even a significant portion of America is against its own government, and we are not breaking down the doors and killing people in the streets, at least for political reasons, I guess you would say. But even if the Iranians had some reservations about that government, it doesn't make them people that are desirous of dying for that cause. Yeah.
Well, it's also quite unusual, like to go against your government while you are under attack by a foreign power, and they're literally killing your children. Yeah. I mean, that would be rather unusual, I would say. And I think the average American doesn't care about Iran, obviously. And from what I read, like according to polls, like over 70% of Americans were actually against this attack. And now they closed the Strait of Hormuz. I don't know if they're going to keep it closed, but if they keep it closed, it will affect the global economy in a major way. I mean, the first thing that people will notice, possibly even starting next week, will be the price of gas will go up dramatically. And this will make a lot of people in the West, not just the United States, but also Western Europe, very, very unhappy. And I think approval rating for Trump will basically hit rock bottom very soon. I mean, if this, like I said, if this war continues and the Strait of Hormuz will stay closed.
That's something that I'm curious to see how that develops over the next 24 to 48 hours. Of course, if this military action were to expand in some way, but I'm curious to know how the average American is waking up to this news and actually thinking about it. And as you say, if this blockade of the Strait of Hormuz is maintained, and then the average American starts to feel it, and not only at the gas pump, but at the grocery store, at just
exactly
in everyday life. Promises made, promises not kept. Not in this administration. So It's going to be disastrous in the midterms. Going to be disastrous in 2028 going forward. I just see the Trump administration doing everything it can to destroy itself. It's just unbelievable to me.
Well, it seems like MAGA was basically just another mask that neoconservatism is wearing, basically. I mean, that's what it seems like. So they just used MAGA for their own ends. I mean, a lot of people joined the Trump administration from the Democrat side, like Tulsi Gabbard and RFK, thinking that he's actually sincere when he said that he's the peace president. But apparently he isn't. And by the way, like talking about this whole Iran debacle, I was actually yesterday before the attack, I was still convinced it would play out like last time, basically like this theatrics where America would just do like some, surgical strikes on Iran, some military installations. Iran would get very angry. They would shout and scream and then hit some bases somewhere in the Middle East, but warn the Americans 24 hours before, like they did last time, so nothing could actually happen, just to save face, right? But I don't think that's what's happening right now. So I must say that I was wrong. I even posted an essay about it on my Substack, predicting what actually didn't transpire, meaning that Iran is actually going all out, it seems, like they said they would, and I'm actually quite surprised. So, so far, the ferocity of the Iranian retaliation really, really shocked me, to be honest. And I think it shocked Trump himself as well, because 2 hours ago he was saying that and people were in his administration were saying that Trump is not happy at all at how things are going in Iran, obviously because they're not going according to plan or how he expected, because he probably expected them to fold or to cave immediately after the American-Israeli attack. And maybe come back to the negotiating table, accept all the demands, and that would be it. But apparently the Iranians were serious. I mean, when they said before the war that any attack, no matter how small, would immediately result in massive retaliatory measures, and this is exactly what happened. And yeah, I mean, it's really amazing.
And this also could be from a military point of view. You conduct this attack, and then you judge the response, and you see what Iran is willing to do, what they're capable of doing, and then you wait another 24, 48 hours, and then you implement your next phase of whatever they plan to do. So who knows how that's going to be? But it also could be a shock or a letdown, as you said, to President Trump. No telling what Pete Hegseth promised that his military, his Department of War, could deliver.
Right, exactly right. Yeah, I mean, some people, some people are saying. I mean, I've read comments online regarding like the global power shift, because people before were saying that the world is moving in a more multipolar direction, and America cannot act as a global hegemon anymore like it used to in the past. I don't know, but this is being called into question now, this development, because apparently America still can, right? Because it's doing it right now. So some people are saying, like, if other poles or other, I don't know, state civilizations are serious about the sovereignty of states, and if they really want to overcome the unipolar system, they should sort of show more solidarity, like a more united front against the Western imperialist aggressors, and or you could call it the Epstein class, right, which is now a very popular term, and also like the American Zionist Epstein syndicate, that is TD Geopolitics is using this term, very nice and very apt, I should say. Yeah, so there should be a more united front, sort of like what the Soviet Union represented in the Cold War, because basically it was the Soviet Union that kept Western, and especially American imperialism in check in the bipolar system from the end of World War II until the 1990s, when the Soviet Union collapsed. So some people are saying we basically need a similar system where like the global majority or nations of the global South, sort of like China, Russia, India, Iran, that they should show more mutual support that goes beyond just words, but also translates into actions. So otherwise, there's no stopping the United States as continuing playing its role as a global hegemon.
Yeah, no, it's a continuation of the old playbook. And where it ends, nobody knows. Now, I've been following a particular Telegram channel. This is a Russian who specializes in China and China relations, and Nikolai Vavilov. And one of the things that he's been predicting and mentioning is very, very interesting. I'd like to share it with our audience. It is in Russian, so I have to translate it. But this is his analysis, and I'm just going to read it, and then we can kind of discuss this, because I find it very, very interesting. He says, most likely a large-scale ground operation against Iran will begin on the night from Sunday to Monday. Landing of a marine assault on the coast and capture of oil infrastructure. Landing in major border centers with Iraq. Blockade of the Persian Gulf, attempt to capture nuclear facilities, attempt to capture Iranian leaders, possible attempts to seize power in the regions of Iranian Kurdistan and Balochistan. Possible attempt of a coup in Tehran. Today, initial measures, assessment of Iran's reaction. The biggest intrigue is what position Turkey and Azerbaijan will take. Pakistan will most likely abstain. Iran will most likely adhere to a tactic of preserving forces and retreating deeper into the territory, since every day of war undermines the strength of the Western coalition. and that's what he wrote today. And I'd kind of like to discuss that because none of the geopolitical analysts that I have so far seen and read on X have spoken in that plain language about what's happening. And I'm curious to know what your opinion of that is.
Well, I think you might be right. I mean, it could happen. You might be right. I don't know. I somehow doubt that there will be a ground invasion simply because of the numbers that would have to be involved for the ground invasion to be actually successful. Because if it's a small number, it could easily be repelled. So, to be honest, I don't think that was actually in the plans of the United States before they started the attack to actually send ground forces into Iran and turn it into a third Gulf War. I think they really banked on Iran's weakness. They thought they could just, bomb Iran, certain targets, maybe force Iran into concessions, or maybe they're really delusional and think that the Iranian masses will rise up and really overthrow the Iranian government themselves, which is, of course, not likely at all, to be honest. So yeah, I can see it happening. This ground war.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, like I said, to see over the next 24 to 48 hours how this what it evolves into eventually.
Yeah. Well, it could evolve into a lot of things. I think, I mean, the Hormuz issue is crucial because, as you said, if they keep it up, it could have huge repercussions all across the world, especially in the West, and I would say especially in Western Europe, because Western Europe is completely dependent on these oil and gas imports that are passing through the Strait of Hormuz, and they don't have any fallback like Russian gas or Russian oil, Russian energy that they had before, because they voluntarily got rid of that. And also got rid of their nuclear power. So, I mean, they're in a very, very bad situation. And again, it's all totally self-inflicted. So for some reason, the Western Europeans always support the powers that actually act against the interests of the European nations instead of allying themselves with powers that would be beneficial to them. So it is rather odd and suicidal, the path that that the European Union is heading down. So I don't know. Some people say we are already in World War III because we have all these different wars that involve great powers going on in different parts of the world, which is certainly true, right? Because you have the proxy war in Ukraine, which is basically between the United States and the collective West against the Russian Federation. Now you have the conflict in the Middle East. I mean, one could also argue it's another proxy war, right? Because you have the United States and again the collective West, the Western Europeans and the Brits on one side, and then you have Iran being supported not just by Russia but also by China this time, also sort of like proxy actors. So you have major conflicts erupting or still going on. And by definition, this could be called a world war. I mean, some people say we could have entered probably World War III, I know years ago when the conflict in Ukraine started getting hot. And future history books might even put the date to 2022 or even earlier, 2020, 23, as a start of the Third World War. And obviously, nobody wants this war to escalate into a nuclear conflict because, well, nobody would benefit from this. But I guess the risk is very high, especially with the deranged Western elite that doesn't see red lines anymore and continues to escalate, not just in the Middle East, but also in the European theater with regards to Ukraine, because we just had the report like a couple of days ago that the Russian government released that the French and the BRICS were basically trying to give to the Ukrainians some dirty nuclear weapon, basically, to provoke Russia and thereby escalate the war in Ukraine. And as we can see, I mean, the West is and not just the United States, also the Western Europeans, because they support all this, has become completely unhinged, so to speak. And like I said earlier, everybody can see like how rabid it has actually become, and it's quite frightening. And I think the global majority, they are looking at this and they're asking themselves like what is going on, especially also with the release of the Epstein files, right? I mean, all the people that are implicated. I mean, all the elites from media, right?
Speaking of the deranged Europeans, we have Keir Starmer today announced that the United Kingdom has entered the war against Iran. And he quotes, "Our forces are active in British planes or in the sky today as part of coordinated regional defense operations to protect our people, our interests, and our allies." And Keir Starmer is so hell-bent on entering some conflict somewhere. He's trying to get into Ukraine, and to some degree, there is a lot of UK interference in that proxy war, and then now we have him in Iran. Incredible.
Yeah, and he doesn't see the double standard, like condemning Russia for supposedly waging an offensive war, and what America and Israel are doing. It's just really, really grotesque to behold, to be honest. And it's also quite strange that a large percentage of people in Western Europe don't see it either, right? Because when I walk around, like in Germany here, like small towns, and you see the town halls usually have 3 flags, right? Yeah, sometimes you have the EU, the European Union flag. Sometimes you have the state flag. Very rarely do you have a German flag, but you nowadays always have a Ukrainian flag and an Israeli flag, right, in front of these like German town halls.
Sick.
This is where their allegiance lies, and I mean they're open about it, but they don't see the double standard that they are practicing, condemning one nation for what it supposedly does when they themselves are engaged in the real thing, like a real unprovoked offensive war, because the same cannot be said about Russia and Ukraine, because Russia was.
Well, where's the United Nations? Where's the
United Nations ineffective, right? Where's the condemnation of the United Nations? Exactly, right? Yes. I don't know. I haven't heard of it. I haven't heard anything yet. Have you? Has the UN made any official statements yet? So I think nothing. I mean, it's all a farce, as we know. And I think all these other poles, these other civilizations, like the Russian Federation and China, they should stop appealing to the United Nations, in my opinion, because it simply does no good. Because every time the U.S. does something, like I don't know, they kidnap Maduro, for example, and I know Russia and China say, well, it's against international law, or they steal the tanker that was flying the Russian flag, the ship. And the Russian government complained that it was a violation of international maritime law. I'm like, but who cares about this? Nobody cares about these laws anymore. They're not they've never been enforced, and now they're not even pretending to enforce them anymore.
The international rules-based order,
it's shattered. Yeah, it's completely shattered. It's in pieces, basically. Absolutely.
Well, I will say about the Starmer, just because I just can't let the mental image go, right? But these politicians are so stupid in their own right. You know, I feel like he's watching the TV right now and he's blaring Shania Twain's "Man, I Feel Like a Woman" right now. I can totally imagine that. And he's just, you know, playing it in the shower and just so excited about what's going on. But what you were talking about, World War III, Constantine, it is actually really terrifying because we live in a world now where people are not afraid. Either you're in the West and you feel like, hey, we still run this joint, and you know they're too stupid to actually be afraid, don't care about their populations, all these kinds of problems, but they're not afraid. They should be at least concerned, but they're not. And then everybody else has just had it. They've just flat out had it. Like, we're sick of living like this, we're sick of dealing it this way, and that is a recipe for a world war. Absolutely. When you get to that point where nobody's really and truly afraid, even if it's for different reasons.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. 100%.
Eddie, can you throw this tweet up? I thought this was fantastic. We have two there. The first one.
Not the Tucker, the Twitter?
The Twitter one, yeah.
Twitter one coming up.
I thought that this was another excellent tweet. How, just to make sure we put this in perspective, right? This war is a betrayal of what his base voted for him for, right? Everybody's saying, oh, wow, finally, you know, Trump was strong enough where no other president became him before was strong enough to do it. But now finally we have a president to be. No, this was literally the exact opposite of why we voted for him. The exact opposite. And now they're trying to twist it back into, no, this is because he is super strong. No, it's because he's super weak. And now he's either sporadic, erratic, whatever that is, whatever side of the bed he's waking up on, or somebody's just whispering him in his ear and told him his shoes look good this morning, and maybe you should think about dropping a bomb on Iran. And this is just, it's just amazing. And I love this follow-up subtext about, imagine if you told somebody in 2020 that Donald Trump would be reelected in 2024, but now Marjorie Taylor Greene would turn on him, Tucker Carlson would intensely oppose his foreign policy, an assassin would kill Charlie Kirk after denouncing the same policy, and then all of these, Levin, Shapiro, Bolton, Graham, would be Trump's biggest cheerleaders. We are being completely gaslit. We have, just as a typical American, we forget what happened 5 minutes ago, let alone what happened 2 years ago. And it's insane.
Yeah, and I have no idea how, as a MAGA Trump supporter, how you can still support Trump right now. I don't know how that's possible after this. I mean, there's no way back from this attack. And I don't think that he will somehow get out of this with,
you know, what I sense,
without any kind of reputational loss.
What I sense about MAGA is that the MAGA movement isn't dead. It's evolving, and it's also moving away from Trump. It's like Trump is not our leader anymore.
Eddie.
He's not our dude.
Trump invented MAGA, dude. Come on. What's wrong with you? He is MAGA.
No. He may be MAGA, but the people who really, really believe it, who actually thought that he was, you know, the man who's going to deliver, and they put him into office, and he's turned on him, you know, him and his best friend Bibi now, and they still want to make America great again. They really do. This movement it still exists, and it still has fire. It does not have a leader, and that leader is no longer DJT. Don't know who the leader is actually going to be.
Do you think there's a possibility of another candidate, a surprise candidate, running in 2028?
Yes, but I don't think it's going to be J.D. Vance, nor is it going to be Marco Rubio, especially not Rubio. Perhaps Vance, but you know, Vance has been kind of quiet. He's got to lay low, but I don't think it's going to be either one of those two.
And why not?
Because they're all tainted. They're all tainted by association with DJT. and following along. And then you've got somebody like, I don't know.
Like Thomas Massey, for example.
Thomas Massey.
You have a lot of
Go ahead.
You have a lot of faith in our election system, Constantine. That's somebody.
Well, I do not. Well, I don't actually. I think it's all a farce anyway. Yes.
Yeah. But I think that Thomas Massey running would be about as much chance of an independent winning the election nowadays. There's just no way. He is the literal bat in Aesop's fable between the war between the birds and the beasts. He can't win. He took his ideological, fight. I don't know how that's going, but I applaud him for it. Nonetheless, I applaud him for it. But he will never be president of the United States or be anywhere close to any kind of real power besides what he has right this moment.
And the same can be said for Tulsi Gabbard. You know, 100%. Tulsi was on her way to superstardom on the world stage, and she still can possibly pull it off. But that guilt by association with this Trump administration, she's going to have to walk back a lot of things. She's going to have to explain, just a ton of things that have happened under her watch. Same thing with like Kash Patel and Bongino. That's another mess. So how big is this Iran attack? How big of a distraction is it going to be away from domestic politics, the Epstein files, and the midterms, the election cycle? Could this be the one event that just hands the victories over, all the keys over to the Democrats?
Well, I will say one thing about this, and I had thought about a little bit about this. So this whole thing, again, they were leaking it, whether or not at one point it was true or at another point it wasn't true. But I think actually what happened is one of two things. Either there was a State of the Union that was happening on Wednesday, right? And I think that they were testing the waters to see what the reaction was from the public. Maybe just get their, I don't know. Unfortunately, I think we have a little bit too much gluttony for entertainment and pressure. And we love this pressure, this buildup of something about to happen. And we just lose our ever-loving minds on it. And so the idea that Iran was going to be bombed on Monday or Tuesday before the State of the Union address, and the State of the Union address is going to be, and we attacked Iran and we, blew the living crap out of them, blah, 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 and how that would be a really nice talking point at the State of the Union. But then I think that there was a concern, right? The Iranians actually might make good on it. And I think that they opted out of that situation. This is why we had the bombings this morning. But there was definitely a calculation, I think, around the entire State of the Union and how that was going to play to people thinking about the midterms. Is it going to give too much positivity? And then it'll be a big letdown when we say we didn't actually do it, whatever. But I think that was a really critical juncture, and they made some calculated risks. And I think they really did a grand job of blowing it out of the water, so to speak.
Yeah, I completely agree. Also, it's very odd to me because they were still negotiating with Iran when they attacked. And they even had another round of negotiations scheduled for Monday. So, and they did the same last time. Last time the Trump administration attacked Iran, the nuclear facilities, they did the same. It was in the middle of negotiation and they just attacked. And this time they did the same. I'm wondering, it's like, who's going to trust you? What other nation's going to trust you after this, negotiating with you because in good faith? Because apparently you can't negotiate in good faith because you're negotiating with another state. And I heard that Qatar actually said, like observers from Qatar actually said that the negotiation between Iran and the United States was actually making headway, and the Iranians were agreeing to a lot of the demands that the United States was making, and they think that the negotiations could have been successful in the end. So the United States and Israel, well, especially Israel, they clearly did not want the negotiations to succeed. And I think it's quite obvious that they only used the negotiations as a cover for their attack, basically, which is exactly what like a crime syndicate would do, obviously. And this is why they're compared to a crime syndicate, because it is not honest, it is not diplomatic, and it's certainly not professional. And I think I think it hurts America's image, and I don't think America benefits from this, because other states will think twice about negotiating with the United States, because they will think, well, if we negotiate with them, how can we be sure that they won't attack us in the middle of the negotiation? It's the same with like the sanctions. Like why should we keep money in the United States, or I don't know, in Western Europe, if they can just impose sanctions and seize our assets if they disagree with our political decisions. This is just another nail in the coffin of Western legitimacy, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely, because on the world stage, you've got the Arab states, the global South, actually the entire world looking at this situation, and the United States losing all credibility. At the same time, they're losing the support and the credibility and the legitimacy with the American public. They're losing it all.
Well, because they're doing
and abroad.
Well, they're doing the opposite of what they promised. I mean, Trump promised mass deportations and no more wars, and he's doing neither. He's not doing mass deportations. Now it's all of a sudden only the hardcore criminals that get deported. Everybody can stay. They just basically gave up in Minneapolis because of a leftist mob. They said, okay, we're just going to leave Minneapolis, whatever, right? So I'm not serious about deportations or ICE. You know, it's nothing. Just talk, but no walk. And yeah, well, obviously, like no more wars was also a big fat lie, as we now see. And I mean, the American public must also see it. Quite obvious. I mean, like I said earlier, 70% or more of Americans were against any kind of war in the Middle East, but they got it anyway, obviously, because nobody cares what the population thinks or the general populace thinks.
Yeah, no. Congress and the House of Representatives, nobody in government represents the people who put them in power at all.
Exactly. Right.
Joe, you've got a slide here with Tucker.
Yeah. Unless you have. Well, I just thought it was again.
Whoa, and we just lost Joseph.
Yeah, internet connection. Maybe you can just read what it says. It's too small for me.
Yeah, so Tucker Carlson speaks out. We lost Joseph, so we're going to wait for him to come back. But Tucker Carlson speaks out against President Trump's decision to attack Iran, calling it absolutely disgusting and evil. Tucker says it will destroy the MAGA movement. This is going to shuffle the deck in a profound way. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm sure you do.
No, I mean, remember, only just a few days ago, we were all talking about the Huckabee interview and how disgusting that was. And all of a sudden, we're dropping bombs and everybody's forgotten about it. And now, you have Tucker actually being a voice of reason amongst many others, including, Constantine, of course, your very good self, other personalities like Douglas McGregor, and, all talking about this. This should have been hat in the bag about the whole thing, right? I mean, Douglas McGregor was just talking about this just the other day, that basically everybody's really, really upset at the U.S. right now because, their U.S. ambassador is just saying it's fine if Israel takes the entire original biblical Israel. back, and now all of a sudden we've gotten Iran to go back after everybody else trying to bomb American bases for bombing them. And now everything's back inflamed again and everybody's divided up against it. But it is absolutely true what Tucker is saying. And I love this as a question. What is your response to Tucker? I don't know if I have anything else other than to say, amen. This is outrageous. It's unacceptable. It's not what anybody asked for. And everybody on the opposite side, or I wouldn't say Democrats versus Republicans, just bad people, are really happy about this entire situation.
I completely agree. Yeah, I mean, Tucker is becoming very, very critical of Israel in general. I think he just released another episode a couple of days ago when he was talking about how Christians are treated in Israel, which a lot of people also don't know about, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Especially in like the holy cities like Jerusalem. Yeah, I mean, I read a lot of accounts and watched several documentaries on it, and it's horrible. And even the Christian Zionists somehow, like the Huckabee types, they are not aware of the fact that actually in Israel there is not a lot of sympathy for Christians. And to be honest, I don't think, I mean, obviously the Christian Zionists are very powerful and very influential in the United States, but I don't think the Zionists view them sympathetically. Obviously, they wouldn't say this openly because they want their support, because they need the United States as their muscle in the Middle East. But I think behind closed doors, they probably hate them, to be honest, for what they believe, because, like I said, I don't think there's a lot of sympathy for the Christian beliefs espoused by these Christian Zionists in Israeli circles. And it's quite interesting how this is becoming, this knowledge is becoming more and more mainstream through people like Tucker. I think this is a major vibe shift in the United States, because, I mean, when I first lived in the United States in the 90s, I mean, you didn't have X, I mean, you didn't have social media and all of this. So I would say the vast majority of young Americans, like, I don't know, in their late teens or early 20s, or even in their early 30s, were still 100% pro-Israel. Because, well, they didn't know any better, right? They thought, well, Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. They have real free speech, just like us. You know, it's like a little America.
It's the Holy Land.
Exactly. And it's the Holy Land. Yeah. And but now with the advent of social media, especially like X, where you sort of have free speech with Elon Musk implementing it, and then you have like these rising superstars, like of course Tucker Carlson, but then you have even more radical ones like Nick Fuentes, and millions of people watch Nick Fuentes, and he is a massive, and he's pretty hardcore radical, I should say.
Yeah.
But so a lot of I think a lot of young Americans are becoming radicalized. And I mean, I read like different polls that even the majority of younger Americans are not even pro-Israel anymore. They're becoming more and more critical of Israel to the point where they're actually anti-Israel. So I mean, do you think, Joseph, what do you think? Do you think that at some point in the future, this could be, I mean, the fact that you have this vibe shift among the American youth now, or this attitude shift, say, do you think this could be reflected somehow in American politics in the future?
Oh, I guess anything is possible. But and Eddie and I have talked about this. Well, we talked about this as well when you were here. Unfortunately, I really think that there is no peaceful solution to the problem. I don't think that time is going to heal these wounds. I think that there will have to be some tremendous amount of sufferings. I don't wish that on people, but unfortunately, I think the reality is people have to feel pain acutely enough to actually want to change, and we are nowhere near that. At least in America, I think like you've discussed about this topic as well, I think that Europe is much more closer to real pain in a very near future, but even than America is. But somehow we continue to limp along, and we're just far away from being a third world country, not like maybe Paris or something like as an example of a third world city. This is
I don't know.
people are closer.
You have like third world cities in the United States, like you go to like
Fair enough.
Portland,
Fair enough.
I mean, I don't know. I've been to big cities in the US, and like walking around after sunset, it's like a zombie movie, right? And it's like downtown Los Angeles when I was there. I mean, I felt perfectly fine like during the day, but as soon as it got dark, like all these like weird freaks came out of the woodworks, and they all over the place, and you couldn't take the subway anymore. I mean, after dark, you can, but I didn't do it. I just took Uber. It's not possible. Way too scary.
No, I was making a little bit of a quip about just Paris, just because I like to. But I think that the point is that still at the end of the day, most Americans, even though they might be in debt, they're used to living in debt. They're still living in a house. For most Americans, this is the case. They're still living in a house, and they still have multiple cars and all this sort of stuff. And it's just we're very far away from it. I'm not saying that it couldn't happen very, very, very quickly. I think that there are certainly incidences we could all think of that could cause America to drop to its knees in just a matter of moments, even. I think I remember certain things happening in the United States that were, like the 9/11 as an example, right? People really, really took that very, very seriously. It was a horrible, horrible thing. I think, though, that clearly that wasn't enough to turn the country around. It was certainly enough for them to turn their, even cheer on and write songs about going and attacking a country that was halfway across the world. But that was a horrible, horrible thing that happened. Everybody said their prayers for a few days, and then, we moved on with our lives, and we, pretended like we were going on the Holy Crusades again. It's just, that's how deep I think that we have become complacent. And I think that, I think a lot of people wish that we were living in a world that reflected, September 11th, 2001. That seemed like it was a much better time even then than it is in 2026.
Yeah, I mean, a lot has changed since then, that's for sure. And not just in global politics, but also in people's mentality and people's outlook. A lot of people have become very embittered just with everything that's been happening, like with a so-called pandemic. Years, did its share, obviously. And interestingly enough, like talking about the conflict in Iran, because if you look at China, the German government, Friedrich Merz, the German chancellor, was just on a state visit in China, and some people posted the videos on X. I think the Chinese embassy in the United States actually posted the video. And it was Friedrich Merz with a Chinese delegation watching like an army of robots doing kung fu moves. And I mean, I watched it and I was like, what? That's like the movie I, Robot with Will Smith, or like some Terminator movie. It's just crazy. And it was not AI. Apparently it was actual robots. And of course, Friedrich Merz is laughing and he's quite amused by it. But then I'm wondering, like, what's happening here? Like, China is basically a science fiction movie, and the West compared is totally backwards. Like, what is happening? Well, I think what is happening is that, like, especially the United States, it spends, like you said earlier, like it spends billions of dollars. I mean, every day now or like every couple of days in Iran. It spent trillions of dollars in literally trillions, thousands of billions of dollars on a 20-year occupation of Afghanistan. That the purpose of the occupation was to oust the Taliban, and then they left Afghanistan with the Taliban in power. So what was the point of this? There was no point, right? Meanwhile, China invests all their money in actually improving the infrastructure and the lives of its citizens, and it shows. And this is why China is so much more advanced. I think the West could also be more advanced if it did not waste its money on wars that nobody wants and nobody actually needs.
That's right. I agree 100%.
Absolutely.
That's it. I do want to say one thing about my comments, because I'm always the one that's usually the Mr. Depressing, very insulting to to everybody's faces. But specifically to Americans, where still, I have many friends and family. It is meant to be inflammatory, and I know that people are very upset when I say things like this, that Americans are too fat and lazy to do anything. Look, I lived there myself for almost 40 years. Like, did I do anything? No, I didn't do anything either. I think that it is meant to be inflammatory, though, because I think at the end of the day that until people become angry enough and chapped off enough, can you imagine if people, from other countries that we call such close allies told you what they really thought about you? That would move the needle. That would move the needle. But the fact of the matter is Americans are not angry enough, and they don't know what to do with that anger if they had it. So it is meant to be inflammatory. And I guess I would not say that I'm sorry. I hope that people become more angry about these things and actually look for ways to change the future.
Yes, indeed.
Absolutely. And I'm reading some of the comments, and they're talking about how the youth, not only in America, but all over the world, have turned against Israel, or have a less than favorable opinion of Israel and what they're doing. And I kind of see that as well. And so my hope is that the youth, the next generation that's coming behind us, will actually be the ones to make the change. Some boomers got to go. Some boomers got to go.
Well, the boomers
all.
will go, and the new generation might improve things. So, fingers crossed.
Yeah, let's hope. Gentlemen, it's been a great conversation. Any last words?
Well, I just want to say that I hope that the war will not escalate. I hope there will not be more civilian casualties. And I hope people in certain states will come to their senses, even though I am not very optimistic about it, but I guess we'll see.
I guess I would just say in closing, I do not in any way. I absolutely condemn these bombings. And there is a great movie by Man for All Seasons about St. Thomas More that many people should definitely spend the time to watch this. And there's this moment, right, where St. Thomas More is betrayed by one of his friends named Richard Rich. And he's in the courtroom, and he asks him what chain he's wearing. And it says, he's a chain of office. He got it for a bribe. And St. Thomas More looks at it, grabs it, and he says, it was a little position in Wales and England that he traded the life of St. Thomas More for. And he said, why, Richard, it profiteth a man nothing to gain the whole world and lose his only immortal soul, but for Wales. And I would just replace that with Israel in this scenario.
Yeah, well said. Well said. My hope is wait and see 24, 48 hours. And maybe we'll have to reconnect here and see what happens. But in the meantime, I do hope that this military operation does not escalate into something that we will all live to regret. So, Constantin Von Hoffmeister, thank you so much. I will have all of your contacts down in the links in the show notes below. You can find them on X at Multipolar Press, Constantin Von Hoffmeister. You can find Jozef Schutzman on X as well. In Home in Russia is his personal page, and you can find us collectively at Russia Up Close. So thank you guys for joining us. Please share this video, and we hope to see you guys soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you.